Welcome back. Tattooed Biker here. And tonight we're going to jump into the realms of the strange and chilling as we explore an enigmatic phenomenon that's intrigued and frightened people around the world: black-eyed kids. I've compiled a creepy collection of eerie encounters and some chilling true stories surrounding these mysterious beings. So brace yourselves, kick back, and enjoy the ride. Number 1. Deadwood, South Dakota. A military man, let's call him JD, went outside to have a smoke. He lives in the hills surrounding Deadwood, South Dakota. He spotted two kids walking up one such hill. They stopped and looked at JD, which spooked him. They were wearing dark hoodies and just looked very out of place. They turned and started to walk in JD's direction. As they approached, JD could plainly see that their eyes were completely black. They started to cross the street, walking directly towards JD, who introduced himself to them. They continued to advance toward him without saying a word. Frightened, he retreated into the house. Inside, he asked his wife if she had heard him talking to anyone. She never heard anything, and they soon went to bed. JD then noticed one of the boys outside his window. He rushed to bolt the front door as one of them was there too. He never made it to the door. For whatever reason, he turned around and went back to the bedroom where he saw the boy standing outside his window. He went to grab his pistol. He wanted to scare them off. He assumed that they were wearing a mask or something. One was at his window and the other at the door. He was extremely scared now. The next thing he remembered was waking up in bed. His wife informed him that he had been gone for an hour and a half. "I did hear the door open and close. You weren't there," she told him. JD had left the house at 4 a.m. and didn't return home until around 5:30 a.m. He rose out of bed and looked at his slippers on the floor beside him. They were wet and a bit muddy. There were wet spots on the hallway and bedroom floor as well. He didn't remember anything other than seeing the black-eyed kid at the window, and then just waking in his bed later. Was JD abducted by these black-eyed kids? And if so, what did they want? Number 2. Los Angeles, California. Back in 2007, I lived in Los Angeles and had a paranormal group. We did an investigation at Hollywood Forever Memorial Cemetery there in Los Angeles. One of the group members was talking to us about an experience he had with a black-eyed person. Frankly, I'd really not heard of them before, and he described this person in detail. And when we left the mausoleum where Valentino was interred, we saw the very same guy. I gotta tell you, it was the spookiest thing. He just stared at us, and he started approaching the car. And as he did, I could see the black eyes. I was the one driving, and I had this sense of doom, like I just had to get out of there. It was all in all a very frightening experience, and I still have no explanation. He was wearing the same clothes this person in the group had described. All I know is it was something that I never want to experience again. Signed, K. Number 3. Lebanon, Virginia. My girlfriend had this little dispute with her sister once, and they couldn't get it resolved, so they went to talk to her mother about it. Well, her sister became so angry, and she soon started yelling. And as soon as she looked, she saw that her sister's eyes were going completely black. There were no whites in them whatsoever, and her mom wasn't turned in a direction where she could see them. So she shook her mom's shoulder and said, look at her eyes." And when her mom looked, she screamed, "Get out of here now with your baby." She didn't want to be anywhere near her. It was when she was at the very height of her anger is when she saw that. This happened in Lebanon, Virginia. Signed, G. Number 4. New York, New York. The year was around 2004, and I lived in New York City at the time. I believe I was walking down near Rockefeller Center. It was around the afternoon, and there were crowds of people around in broad daylight. I was lost in my thoughts when all of a sudden, a very tall man, in what I'm recalling was a gray suit, said excuse me as I was walking past him, whereas he had his back facing me as I was passing him on his left, so I didn't see his face. As he was angling to face me, he asked if I could fill out a questionnaire for him, and the form was immediately held so I could see it. My eyes looked directly at the form without seeing his face. The form asked for my name, my telephone number, my address, and a couple of other questions that I didn't bother to take heed to because as soon as I saw all the personal info required, I wasn't interested. As I turned to say no thanks, that's when I saw that his eyes were completely black, no whites at all. He was polite when he asked, and I distinctly remember that he had clean, impeccable shoes. He was a lighter-skinned mixed race and probably over 6 feet tall and around 28 years old. When I saw his eyes, my first instinct was, oh, he must have some kind of disease that made his eyes turn completely black. And for a second, I felt sorry for the poor fella who had to do this line of work, looking the way he does. He didn't give off any dark vibes or anything because I guess I could see others around me, which made me feel safe, but unlike most people in New York City, he seemed very sterile and unemotional. I never told anyone about it because I just thought he had an illness and forgot about it over the years. Signed S. Number 5. Chicago, Illinois. I live in Chicago, in East Garfield. This past Saturday, I was at a local food mart buying groceries. I walked to my car, loaded the 2 bags into my back seat, and then got in the driver's seat. As I went to start the car, to my shock, a young, pale-skinned woman with long dark hair was sitting in the passenger side. The first thing I noticed was her coal black eyes. She looked right into my eyes and said, "I need help. Please help me." She literally looked like the Walking Dead. I told her to get out, but she insisted that I take her to the hospital. We weren't too far from the local hospital, so I headed in that direction. We were still about 2 blocks away and at a red light when she suddenly jumped out of the car, took a few steps, and then simply vanished. No trace of her. She didn't look like a ghost. She was in solid form. The next Sunday, I felt sick to my stomach and my eyes were sore and red. I believe it had something to do with this black-eyed woman. I'm still not feeling 100%, and I've had terrible nightmares. This may not be related, but a few of my family and friends have recently had unexplained activity at their homes. In particular, my brother. He lives a few blocks from me and swears there's a demon down in his basement. He and his girlfriend won't go down there, and they're planning to move soon. He's been having terrible dreams as well. I just wish I knew what was going on. Signed, Jade. One day, back in 2003, I was walking down a bike path in the back of my house with my stepdaughter when I saw 2 boys leaning against their bikes up ahead. I didn't really think much about it since it is a bike path, until one of the kids raised his head up and looked me straight in the eye. That's when fear struck me so hard that I was stopped dead in my tracks. His eyes were black and hollow, like he didn't have a soul. It was like looking at pure evil. At least, that's how I described it when I recounted the incident later that evening. I immediately led my stepdaughter off the path, cutting through someone's yard, and we walked out onto the street. I didn't know what I'd encountered at the time, but now I'm quite sure it was the black-eyed children. I don't know what they are, but I know they're dangerous. It was so weird, I thought that my stepdaughter would be aware or sense, maybe, of what I perceived to be impending danger, but she was completely oblivious, even when I led her off the path and onto the street. I somehow just knew that we had to get out of there, right then. Surprisingly, they appeared normal in every other aspect, except for the eyes, of course, and a vague awareness that they didn't quite fit into the environment. I only saw the eyes of one of them because the other kid had his back to me. He looked to be around 13 or 14 years old, wearing a flannel shirt and jeans. Now that I've been reading about these encounters, it piques my curiosity, but I sure wouldn't want to run into them again. Number 7. Reno, Nevada. I've meant to send my story to you for a while now, but I've yet to pull the trigger. It concerns a black-eyed woman. This was a few weeks after my sister died in an auto accident. For some unknown reason, I thought that this black-eyed woman was her returning in spirit. I've read a few different stories of other people running into these beings. It was a little over 5 years ago, and I was sitting in the kitchen. Both my parents were on vacation, so I was home alone. I had invited one of my sister's friends over, and we were talking about my sister. My sister was just 17 when she died. While we were sitting there, I looked out the window, which was next to the front door, and that's when I saw the woman. She was right up against the window, just peering in. Her skin was a pale gray color, but her eyes were jet black, no white at all. Just staring into them felt like endless pits. Her hair was partially covering her face, and she just stood there, staring at me. I've never felt that kind of fear in my life, and on top of everything that was going on, most people thought it was just a hallucination. It doesn't matter what others think. I know what I saw, and especially what I felt. I've never run into this woman again, and I pray to God that I never will. I'm just glad that these people aren't allowed in homes unless they're invited. Signed, K. Number 8. Fort Myers, Florida. A few days ago, I was standing in line at a Walmart here in South Florida. I was waiting to pay for my purchases. I usually don't look around at others in line, but I had an odd sensation and noticed a sickening scent of roses. I turned around at a short man dressed in black. I looked at his eyes, and they were totally black. He also had a grumpy look on his face. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I got this evil feeling that I needed to get away from him right away. After I paid for my stuff, I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I got into my car and started to back out, but then I see this same man standing by my car, staring at me. I almost hit another car in my zeal to escape. He just stared at me in that same grumpy expression. I get sick to my stomach just thinking about it. The weird thing was that no one else seemed to notice him. Was this thing the Grim Reaper or something similar? Signed, A.M. And there it is. All I have for tonight. I hope you found this video intriguing and thought-provoking. If you have any personal encounters or stories related to this phenomenon, feel free to share them in the comments section below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. So thanks again. Stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe. And I'll be seeing you on down the road. Biker.